We said put the fries in the bag, McLaren. Welcome back to Motorsport 101.
Fries are all over the ground, on the floor, getting cold, unseasoned, undercooked, overcooked, under the fryer, and all over the counter. But you know what they're not, Dre? They're
In the
not
bag,
in the bag.
apparently. They're not in the
No,
bag.
because they ate them all on the way over.
Typical fast food employee can't help but steal from the bag on the way out. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 631 of Motorsport 101. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, Stray Harrison, and yes, we still have a world championship in Formula One this year. Yes, we are actually having a three-way title decider in Abu Dhabi this weekend. I can't quite believe it either, but here we are. We're doing this again. Max Verstappen somehow wins in Qatar despite being maybe the fourth fastest man all weekend. Oscar Piastri back to full power, but may have left this too late. Lando Norris nowhere to be seen, and McLaren commits a hellacious bag fumbling, and that barely scratches the surface of the whole weekend because we have a boatload to talk about. I promise you, this is going to go over an hour. I'm almost certain of that. Joining me to make sense of this ridiculous week in motorsport, because I mean, going back to the Adrian Newey story of a week ago, this has been a hellacious week in Formula One news. We got Mr. Cameron Buckley. Hello, sir.
Hello. You know, it's a shame that we had our Ferrari rant of the year just about a week too early. Because they were so much worse this weekend than they were the prior, that I can scarcely believe it. And yet, because of the papaya fumble, they are not the biggest losers of the past weekend.
It's amazing that we actually probably went too soon. Yeah, we thought Vegas was bad, and it was, but somehow this weekend actually felt worse. For many reasons, which we'll get to.
Understeering and oversteering at the same time. Welcome back, F14T.
The vacuum cleaner. A timeless classic. Oh, dear. Also joining me, Mr. RJ O'Connell. Hello, sir.
That's harsh on vacuum cleaners. Vacuum cleaners at least serve a purpose around house and home. Gentlemen, we're going to have a three-way title fight in Abu Dhabi. Does anybody remember the last time we had a multi-party title fight in Abu Dhabi in 2010?
Yeah, I did. Behold the Great Wall of Vitaly Petrov. That was cold-blooded.
Third place in the championship going into that race, ended up winning that race and the championship with it. Same thing happened in 2007. In fact, if you go back in the history of all these multi-man title deciding races throughout the entire history of the Formula One World Championship, it's better to be trailing than to be leading going into it. And all I'm saying is that doesn't bode really well for our old friend Lando Norris.
Yeah, we've had the stats go the rounds on this one. We've had, 76 world championships in Formula One now. 6 of them have had 3 or more drivers eligible to win the title going into the final round, and on all 6 occasions, the leader going in didn't win the title. Yeah, so the math, or fate, if you're a believer in such things, actually goes against Lando Norris, even though the maths, I would argue, is still greatly in his favour. We'll have to see. We'll talk about how McLaren fumbled their bag, how Max Verstappen won this race, a very nasty pylon on social media for Kimi Antonelli coming off the back of the weekend and how we got there. Red Bull have confirmed their drivers for 2026, and hence the 2026 grid is complete in Formula One, and sadly we're going to be saying goodbye to one Yuki Tsunoda. More on that soon. Carlos Sainz on the podium again for Williams, believe it or not.
Polar Bear, Arlen. You know, he's got to be getting used to it at this point.
Polar Bear in
Yeah.
Arlington, Doha. Who knew? More on that. Ferrari's new nadir. We got a new F2 champion, Leonardo Fornaroli. Congratulations to the Italian. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. And of course, we'll preview a little bit the final round of this year's championship, Abu Dhabi, round 24, and a three-way title decider to decide who wins the 2025 Formula One World Championship. We should be a lot more excited about this, quite frankly, and yet I don't. I'm just tired, boss. More about that in the next hour and change or so. But until then, let's get through the general housekeeping. First of all, you can find us on youtube.com/motorsport101, facebook.com/motorsport101. We're on Twitter at motorsport_101. If you want to follow us on Blue Sky, you can as well. Dre Harrison, RJ O'Connell, cbuckley917.bsky.social. If you want to follow us on Instagram and TikTok for video highlights of the show and bonus monologues from your mans, you can do so at M101_podcast on TikTok and Motorsport101pod on Instagram for those highlights. If you want to check those out, you can check out our website, motorsport101.com. Full MotoGP season review from yours truly, over 12,000 words long in total, in 3 parts, is now out in full on the website. And if you check in a little bit later this weekend, you'll get the podcast version as well, because that is up next on the docket. So that'll be out probably on Saturday. So look forward to that. Also, so of course, we'll still be doing written blogs, award stuff all the way through the off season. Please do not take your time off just because we're in December now, which it's weird we're talking about mainstream motorsport series and we're in December, but here we are. Of course, you can back us financially on Patreon. If you really like us, you can back us there. Patreon.com/motorsport101. $5 gets you early access to all of our content. You get upgraded to the $10 tier to listen to these episodes live as they're being recorded, as Ghost Raptor is doing, and Jason, Vic as well. Thank you very much for listening and for your ongoing support. Right, I can hold this back no longer. Let's knock down the penultimate round of the championship, round 23, the 2025 Qatar Grand Prix.
We brought the small pots, we brought the medium pots, we brought the large pots because we need to do some boiling. It was all looking like it was coming up Millhouse for McLaren. Oscar Piastri was back on form with a perfect weekend through Saturday. Fastest in practice, winning the sprint pole, winning the sprint, lights the flag, qualifying on pole for the Grand Prix with another lap record over Lando Norris in second. And for the first 6 laps, Piastri was way out front in Qatar. Then there was an accident between Nico Hülkenberg and Pierre Gasly that ended both their races, and a safety car was deployed. Everyone in the field pits on lap 57 out of 57 laps with a 25-lap limit on tire life. Now, if you take 25 times 2, what's 25 times 2, gentlemen, without looking it up on your calculators?
50.
All right. And then you add another, wait a second. So everybody pits except the 2 McLarens with the Qatar Grand Prix run under that 25-lap limit. It meant that Max was forced into his final stop on lap 32. But that didn't matter because after both McLarens had to make their 2 stops, it gave Max an 18-second delta on his final stint. That was too much of a gap for Piastri to chase down, and with it, Verstappen takes his 7th win of the season and the 70th of his career. But most importantly, it gives the Dutchman an outside chance at the season finale, reducing his deficit to Norris to just 12 points, as Norris could only manage 4th, was 5th until late in the race. We'll talk about that momentarily. Norris's struggles for pace kept him behind Carlos Sainz on the podium for Williams. Okay, maybe this isn't Arlington, Texas. I think this is more like Arlington, Virginia. That's near D.C. That gets cold there sometimes. But the big thing is, going into the decider, Lando Norris 406, Max Verstappen 394, and Oscar Piastri 390. Still within reach at 16 points back. But a lot of people are fearing that he's only going to be playing a facilitating role. I could justify what McLaren did because they're rolling the dice on safety cars, because if they're worried about 25 laps on a set of tires, they're probably thinking we're going to get a lot of punchers, we're going to get a lot of VSCs and safety cars. They're going to be boxed in on strategy. We've got flexibility. And what happened was they got the kind of flexibility that is commonly associated with the phrase, had one of their ribs removed. And ultimately, this brand of self-gratification didn't get them anywhere. I mean, gentlemen, what was that from McLaren?
Cam, do you want to go first on this one? Because I normally do on this show.
What it was a case of motorsport malpractice. Because by keeping both of their cars out, it guaranteed that everyone else was on 2 more stops for the remainder of the race. While McLaren would have to do all of theirs under green. And you think, well, they've got track position. Track position's important here.
Very important here, because that Qatar sprint race was awful.
Abysmal, non-existent, trash, garbage. And I'm just talking about Ferrari's technical department.
Ugh.
But man, you wonder, well, how many positions did Max Verstappen lose when he pitted? 1 to Lando Norris. Everyone else took the gamble, not even a gamble as we saw, because it was a strategy decision so obvious, even Ferrari and Alpine figured it out.
The only reason Esteban Ocon didn't pit was because he had to serve a penalty during that whole stint, because it's just like, well, can't serve him now.
Esteban Ocon taking the stepping on rakes approach to the race this weekend. I can scarcely put it into words how stupid this ended up playing out, because pretty much halfway through that burst from first safety car to first pit stop for McLaren, you knew the race was dead. They drop the hammer. They go all out. Well, we need to pull a pit stop gap. We've got the pace. Let's do it. Until their tires burnt out about 5 laps into that stint, going all out. And Max stemmed the bleeding at about 5 seconds. As soon as that occurred, the race was over. It was done. Because even if McLaren could get a safety car later on, unless it landed at the exact right time, you gave up track position to Max. No matter what scenario you chose to have to go run a pit stop gap down on Max Verstappen and pass him on track.
It was at best, highly ambitious. I'm going to defend McLaren a little bit here, in that their logic clearly was that they were going to hope that maybe more of the back markers stay out, and maybe try and build a gap with pace. Maybe there's another safety car that can open up a window for you later on. I can understand why, if that was the plan with McLaren's logic, I can get there on this one. However, and put your finger down, Cameron. However, the problem was the maths was too perfect. Like, you have to do a 7-lap stint somewhere. And if you're anybody, why would you not take a pit stop, assuming the rest of the race runs smoothly, which is always the most likely scenario? Why wouldn't you take a safety car pit stop and lose maybe only 12 seconds as opposed to 26 for a pit stop under green? It's too big a time gain to ignore. That's how I look at it. And McLaren say they wanted flexibility, which, again, I can understand to an extent. However, the problem you've got with saying that you want flexibility is that you're predicting a race that hasn't happened yet. You can only predict the race that's directly in front of you. And the direct in front of you call says you come in now and you save 10 seconds.
Dre,
10 to 15 seconds.
You're giving them too much credit.
I am giving them too much credit. Because, listen, I am excavating like the book holds to try and give these guys something to play with here.
They didn't even think about that, Dre. Because Stella talked about it after the race. The only thing they were concerned by is that they didn't want to disadvantage one of their cars against the other. Because if you box both, Lando gets double stacked, probably loses a couple positions on track when everyone else pits. If you just box Lando, you've split the strategies. Not pitting Lando Norris in this situation was motorsport malpractice.
As Vic in our chat quite rightly puts, and this is one for the British listeners out there, Tony Robinson on an episode of Time Team would have given up on this dig because there's nothing left to find. Okay, Vic, I'll take your word for it on this one. This was stupid. Look, the thing is, right...
They needed about four... Yes.
Hold off for 2 seconds on this one. Just trust me on this. This is the problem, right? And this goes into the greater arc of 2025, the greater arc of McLaren and the way they compose and build their team. This has been a marketing and PR exercise from Zak Brown from the very start of this year, arguably even into 2024 to a degree, but at least in 24, he had the wise logic to see that Piastri had no shot of the title around Azerbaijan, and he pulled the team orders to give Lando the best chance of winning, because he was the better man last year. That was more than obvious. This year, not quite so conclusive. That I can understand. But you know what this is? This is McLaren being scared. They are too scared to make the bold call, and they are too scared to hurt one of their drivers. That is what this is. This has been the premise from day one. They leaned a little bit more towards letting fate play out, but every time they've had to make a choice, every time they've had to consider all the options and make a difficult decision, they will take the safest option and the most equal option every time to placate their drivers. It's a marketing exercise because they don't want to piss off their quadrant beloved son, and they don't want to piss off their hot new Australian upstarts. They want title Twinktown to be a thing at McLaren, right? When the reality of that is, one of you has to lose.
It better not be both. Because that's all well and good if you're the only two people in the fight. Max Verstappen has surpassed Oscar Piastri's points total.
And that's the problem. And Max Verstappen himself has admitted it numerous times this season, that the only reason he's still in this title fight is because McLaren have so many times fumbled the bag, left points on the table, and have made mistakes in a highly conservative environment that has opened the door for Max to punish them, because Red Bull will gamble. Red Bull will take those risks. They will mix up the strategy book to give Max the best possible chance of winning, even if it means it doesn't work out every once in a while.
Yeah, it's Red Bull. Do you think they give a shit about the perception, about the fairness between their two drivers? No!
They've never given a shit about that, because most of the time Red Bull, for the last, I would say 15 years now, has had an elite number one driver in their cockpit at the front of their team, from Sebastian Vettel to Daniel Ricciardo to Max Verstappen now. Red Bull have had no problem playing the harsh 1-2 team strategy game, and generally speaking, it works better than having an equal driver policy. You know what it says to me, gentlemen? You know what it says to me, gentlemen?
What does it say?
McLaren don't trust their drivers. They've never trusted their drivers. And that's the ironic thing. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have fully committed to papaya rules. They fully committed to everything this team has asked of them over the last 2 years, and yet they still don't trust them to come out at the end of the occasional bad call, which is inevitable to happen in racing. It's pathetic. Zak Brown is a shit man manager, and look, real talk, they're probably going to get away with it in the grand scheme of things. They're probably going to win both titles, but they are making a complete Horlicks of this.
They just need to put the fries in the bag. As you've said. They don't need to worry about people in the Australian Senate raising questions about whether McLaren is biased against Oscar Piastri, costing them the world championship, taking time on the Senate floor to pose this question, even if it is just trolling.
They needed 0.7 of a second per lap to make their strategy work. For a
They only
portion of
had
that
4.
race, and really they had 4 because they spent a lot of that race pushing like crazy. As soon as that gap tailed off a little bit on the 4th lap after the safety car, Max was able to basically just stop the bleeding at about 4.5, 5 seconds. And then it was done. Because then he got fresher tires, he went on the hards, and he was practically pushing Lando around the track because the hard was the better race tire. McLaren didn't play anything about this safe. They played it stupidly. They played it refusing to accept the race in front of them and trying to mold the race to just be between their 2 drivers, and it's not just between their 2 drivers.
Scared
They're
money
not fast
don't
enough.
make none. Like, you
This wasn't this wasn't scared. It was stupid.
They could have just matched Max on strategy. If it really came down to it, if you were in the full panic mode scenario, you could have just said, box like Max. Do what Max does. If he comes in, you come in as well. If not, whatever, stay out, right? But at least that way you all go down together and you've still got track position over him.
You've still got the points total.
Yeah, if it really came down to it, you could have just replicated Max on strategy. You didn't even do that. You were too scared of pissing off Lando Norris's feelings, and it cost him badly, and it cost Piastri a big 10-point swing that would have kept him alive in this title. Because it's a shame. I feel bad for Oscar because he had a perfect weekend. He was incredible this weekend.
He
was
showed
perfect.
up to work for the first time in 2 months, and they strand him out on track with a dead-end strategy that the rest of the grid knew was dead-end. And again, McLaren had to push like crazy just to get out of the woods, because Piastri and Lando barely cleared the DRS train that made up the second half of the top 10. They just got out ahead of Alonso. They needed every ounce of pace they could give out of the car. Piastri had to go pass a Williams and a Mercedes on track in order to actually make the strategy work.
Had to send it on Kimi Antonelli from a long way back in, and that turn one's not as big a breaking point as some turn ones on the calendar, because this is Qatar. We're talking about turn 1 as a long radius 3rd gear right-hander. It's not a huge braking zone compared to some tracks we go to on the calendar with a DRS zone attached to it. So Piastri had to take a fair degree of risk to try and make this work, and he did everything he could except win. And I feel bad for the kid, because that was the comeback of a man fighting for a championship, and he got a second to show for it. It says a lot that he went on Instagram and uploaded a picture of him holding the second place trophy with no caption. I think that's
kind of just looking down at it like it should have been first, because it should have been first. And as it stands, he now is a big long shot, to win the championship. It's the same thing we used to rake Ferrari over the coals for in 2017 and 18, that they would strategize a race and then refuse to react to what was happening in front of them. And it's this McLaren, very good car. Very good car. It's probably fallen out of, is it a top 10 F1 car all time? No, but it's still damn good.
It's exceptional.
But you are not Mercedes in 2014 to 16, where something terrible would happen. All right, turn the car up, let's go win this race. You just punch a second a lap on the field the rest of the race. They're not that. And the pay, even worse than that, because the race ended up being, the hard ended up being the race tire, because you could just go out and hammer the hard tire pretty much all stint. They then couldn't make up their minds on what to do second half of this race, because Max is gone. Max has won the race at this point through pace on the hard tire. McLaren has a decision to make on what they do at the end of the race. Do they push to get to the scrub softs, because they're out of fresh softs, or do you put on the hard? And they got the worst of all worlds, where they didn't get it to the point where they could have used the softs, but they also put the hards on at a point where you don't take any real benefit of running them. You don't take benefit of their durability. They ran a worst of all world strategy out of fairness.
It's poor. It is poor, and Zach and Andrea Stella, who, look, Stella does not get enough flowers for me for the work he's done at McLaren as team principal. I think he gets a bit of a bad rap because Zach is the face of this team and franchise. Look, we said this after Austin, and I'm going to say it again here. They need to put their foot down. Like, and again, I'd be telling Oscar, sorry, buddy, you're minus 16 with 25 on the table. You need a miracle. We're all in on Lando because we don't care. We've got to win this driver's title as a team one way or another. That's why there's rumours going around that Zach might ask Oscar to make that decision to step aside, and we're all in on Lando for the title. But again, given it's been happy fun times for the last year and a half, they've left it way too late. Pardon me. God, no, I was about to sneeze there for a second. They've left it way too late for that to happen now at this point, without royally pissing Oscar off, because he still has an outside chance at this championship. He's a 12-1 long shot, but it's still a chance.
That was a decision to make after last race. RJ, you're muted.
Realistically, yeah, I don't know about those 12-1 odds, brother. I think it's going to take Norris and Verstappen both having mechanicals or, heaven forbid, an accident. Heaven forbid, an accident together for that to even be a remote possibility.
The math is pretty simple with Piastri. Minimum of second, and he needs an act of God to occur to Lando.
Yeah, I think the most likely scenario is Piastri wins, Lando Norris DNFs. That's probably the most likely path to the title for Oscar from here. Because the win would also cover beating Verstappen by enough points to overtake him again, because he's 4 behind Verstappen. So that, for me, is the most likely way that Piastri can win it. But man, does he need a long shot.
I mean, Trey, I don't know how it's possible. Max Verstappen was 104 points off of Oscar Piastri. He's now 4 points ahead of him.
Baffling.
How?
It is unfathomable that this scenario has happened, where McLaren, who had this in rice with 7 races to go, have now opened the door where the bookies are giving Max a 28% chance at the title. The fact it's in double digits is a crying indictment of how much McLaren have bottled this. 94 points in the last 8 rounds they've lost when it comes to Max to the title lead since Zandvoort. It's laughable that this is a car that won, what, I want to say 12 out of the first 16?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how on earth has it gotten to this point?
If he doesn't lose his rag at the Spanish Grand Prix, Max Verstappen's leading this championship. And do you think that he's coughing up even a small lead in this championship?
He wouldn't have been leading the championship. He'd be 8 points closer than he is now.
Right, but do you think he can't overturn that then?
I don't like the whole cherry-picking argument, because I think the bigger problem that Max had was that he didn't have a competitive enough car for the first 2/3 of the season, let alone Gianpaolo, in my opinion, has to take a degree of responsibility for what happened in Barcelona, because he made a wrong decision to give the place back. Max doesn't blow his rag if it wasn't for that call from the pit wall. A smarter pit wall, that doesn't happen. So, like, I know people are very quick to point that out because it's the decision that Max took. I think it's a little bit more layered than that. And even if you want to throw Barcelona in there, I can raise you and say he probably lost more from Austria when Kimi took him out.
Speared. Well, and same deal. Lando lost a nailed-on 18 from an oil leak. Lando probably lost another nailed-on, 8 here, with McLaren just refusing to make the obvious call out of fairness. And
13 in Australia when Piastri spun off when the rain came down.
You can pick and choose it all year.
Yeah.
Like, the facts of the matter is that McLaren have left this too late to put a team orders call in, given they have been happy fun times all year. The front wing introduced at Zandvoort on the Red Bull might be the greatest front wing in the history of Formula One in terms of percentage of upgrade, because
That's
my
awesome.
God. Between that and the floor in Monza, it rewrote the competitive form. And the fact of the matter is this: if you give Max Verstappen a competitive car, he will get the most out of it. He has not been off the podium since that Zandvoort weekend.
Average finish before Zandvoort 4.1. Average finish since then 1.7.
It's pretty good. And once again here, McLaren looked to have this race sewn up, at least with Piastri. They were fast. Max, in that middle section of the race, pretty much invalidated any attempt that McLaren could have made to try and salvage this race, because his second medium stint onto the hard stint, he was just too fast.
You disappointed Sir David Beckham, one of the least greasy guests that McLaren has had in that garage this year, man. Come on.
Yeah,
The bar is in hell.
The bar is somewhere underneath Alpine's horsepower total.
It's like, oh my god, Sir David Beckham, he's not so bad, he's just a conventional Qatar sports watcher. Yay!
But
Jesus.
Yeah, now we have the two McLarens split by 16. You have Max in the middle of it. You have a drive to keep everything equal, because rather than disadvantage one car, we're going to disadvantage both cars.
Well, Zach said...
Max is in the middle there, just waiting to take title number 5 before he fucks off to NLS.
Zach said before Brazil he would rather lose the title than pick one driver over the other. Go prove it.
The rabbit with the pocket watch right here.
Prove it. Prove it, Zach. I dare you.
So what? If Lando Norris and Max Verstappen take each other around the first lap, does that mean when Oscar Piastri's leading, we just go okay, it's time to retire the car. We got to make this fair.
It's only fair.
The fact that we even have to make that joke is just an example of McLaren's arrogance and ineptitude, because they're the only elite team in Formula One with 2 elite drivers, and it shows. And their arrogance might cost them a world championship the way it's going.
Your car isn't good enough to do this. You do not have the F2002. Could you imagine Ferrari in 2002 trying to keep it fair between Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello?
Yeah.
I never even crossed their mind.
No. I mean, we joked about the possibility of if Norris retires, Piastri has to as well. I'm sure other people were joking about the fact that, Andrea Antonelli might have just had an oversteer moment. I'm sure Nelson Piquet Jr. had an oversteer moment when he coughed up 4th place to Lando Norris at the very end of the race, led to a reported 1,000 recorded hate messages against Kimi Antonelli.
1,400 combined across Kimi and Mercedes social media pages.
Dre, is it time that we need to reconsider what the foundation is built out of, and whether or not we need to tear this down and start all over again?
Yeah, I mean, look, when I've made the point on this show many a time that sports fandom is built on a healthy bed of hatred, it is not me justifying that fandom exists. I'm just giving you the reality of the situation. I am not stupid. I know for a fact that, and I've said this before on podcasts and on videos and on our blog many a time, Formula One has gone through what I call a footballization effect of the last half decade, where everything is now soccer for the American listeners out there. If anyone who doesn't follow soccer on social media, it is the most toxic sports fandom on earth. It is hate messages, it is bile, it is venom, it is the worst of the internet when it comes to sports discourse. And that, in my opinion, has spread to other sports, like Formula One. I think it's spread to politics as well to a degree, whether you're blue or red. And I'm sure you can understand what I'm saying when I say blue versus red. Now, the thing is that it would be very easy for me to just pin the tail on Red Bull, but it's a bit more complicated than that, and there's a reason why I say this, right? Because, first of all, Gianpiero Lambiase needs to do better. He was the one who fired up the radio and immediately said to Max that he felt that Lando had given it up on purpose. Even if he was joking, that probably isn't the right time and the place to make that joke, especially when you are the race engineer and you know there is a percentage chance that, and I'd say a high percentage chance, that anything important, especially with a lap and a half to go in the race, is going to get broadcast as soon as it's available. And that's exactly what happened. The FOM posted that message in full. And may I remind people as well, we had not seen the full context of Antonelli's mistake until after the race was already over. And in my opinion, that's the worst time possible because half the audience have already stopped watching. You know how pure sports fans are. The moment the race is over, change channel. I'm off to Sky Sports News. I'm going to watch Chelsea versus Arsenal now. Cool.
If you had an F1 TV Pro sub, you could have gone back to Antonelli's onboard and see him just completely lose the front end of the car, give up enough time to let Norris through, and make an actual, honest-to-God, on-track overtake at the Lusail International Circuit in a Formula One car.
And here's the thing, because as an owner of a F1 TV Pro subscription, who was watching it in full 4K on that television, it was about maybe 10, 15 minutes after the race had even ended, where we were already in the post-race show, where we even saw that clip. It legitimately did look, during the main broadcast, that Antonelli just got out of the way. Because the way it hard cut, we see the two of them go off into the turn, the camera focuses on Lando, it hard cuts to the wide shot, and Lando's driving by. We literally just didn't see it, and comms in the moment didn't see it either. They're going, what was that?
So I need to make this point abundantly clear. GP did not need to make that comment. However, race direction, and so I should say TV direction, they need to do better and give their viewers that very important context as soon as possible, because you got to remember, this is the heat of battle with a lap and a half to go in a three-way title decider. Getting that information to the viewer is as important as possible, and if you did it properly, I guarantee you would have mitigated a good chunk of the abuse that Antonelli would get after the race, who all he has done is made an honest mistake on track, and the only person he needs to answer to is his team. And even then, it was a minor mistake that cost him one position. It is not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But of course, Helmut Marko opens his fucking mouth as soon as the race is over and tells the press straight away that Antonelli did it on purpose and only apologized hours later when it was already too late. Now, again, as people will point out, both parties have apologized, and I'm glad they have. GP apologized to Toto Wolff straight away and said, look, hold my hands up. Got it wrong. He admitted he hadn't seen what had happened and didn't realize his message was broadcast. You know, because again, we didn't see it on TV for 15 minutes after the race was over, right? GP went to Toto Wolff and apologized. Helmut Marko went to F1 Insider and apologized there as well and had to clarify, no, he did not do it on purpose. That was a mistake. My bad. I'm glad they've apologized, but the damage was already done by that point. Like, it was too late. In that sense, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube after something like that happens. And while it's not fully Red Bull's fault that this played out, you need to improve your communication and you need to do better than this, because the last thing this sports fandom needs is an excuse to send death threats and homophobic slurs to a 19-year-old young man who did very, very little wrong and did not deserve any of the abuse that he took. It's bullshit, and we need to do better. And we as an audience need to call out the people that are doing this shit, because it's bang out of order and it makes all of us look like idiots. It's stupid, it's pathetic, and it's wrong. Okay? Have we learned nothing from Abu Dhabi 2021? I know that is like the dark clown, the Darth Vader of Formula One races, but I need to remind people of some things. Nicholas Latifi had so many death threats after that race was over, he had to hire private security for him and his girlfriend because he was genuinely scared for his life. Michael Massey, say what you will about that man. He made an honest-to-God mistake in the box, trying to guarantee an entertaining finish that the teams wanted him to do. He did not deserve the death threats that he got after that race was over. Nobody won when Abu Dhabi 2021 happened. It was a black mark for everybody involved in this sport. No one came off the better for it. No one did. Right? Hamilton was screwed of a world title. People were trying to asterisk Max Verstappen undeservedly. A race director lost his job who still wasn't fully trained for the role because Charlie Whiting died before he could finish the job, the poor man, and his family, and what that came through. Michael Massey got it in the ringer. Nicholas Latifi got it in the neck. It was awful for everybody. We should have taken a lesson from that weekend and the aftermath that came after it, that we can do better as a sport. But no, we can't.
No,
because for some
That's
reason,
right. Because remember,
Exactly
children have notebooks and posters of Darth Vader all over their walls. They have Darth Vader wallpapers. Some of these sick people just live for the mess. They live for the drama because it doesn't affect them personally.
Yeah, and what do we see feeding into this but plenty of people who have made bitching about Abu Dhabi 2021 on whichever side you would decide to align with your entire online personality. People use it as a shield to attack people with. People did not need an excuse to use this to attack Kimi Antonelli. And I will tell you, in another Discord, not ours, not one of the other ones I follow F1 in, and not the only one, few people asked in the moment, did we just see her F97? Because we literally just didn't know. For those who don't know, McLaren, Mercedes, and Williams quite literally did work together to fix that race. Not that Michael Schumacher needed any help to lose it.
Yeah, the enemy of my enemy. Yeah, the enemy of the enemy is my friend, and you know, the famous quote after the race from Ron Dennis: "I guess the right people won in the end." Wink, wink. Yeah,
and then Makarov cuts in. One day you're going to find that cuts both ways. Lord, have they?
We got to do better than this, man. It's pathetic.
I agree.
Like it's like I implore the fans of this sport, if you see one of your friends being a dickhead, call them out for it. Like call out shitty behavior. Be the person that has to go, well, actually, and you know, try to nip this shit in the bud. Because look, I fully agree with what RJ is saying, in that there is a small percentage of this audience that want to be dickheads without being called out for it, because that's just who they are as people, and they're miserable, and they want to take that misery out on their quote-unquote escape from their lives.
So much nowadays, because, and this is, we're way too small to have a greater discussion about how social media algorithms poison our brain to just constantly feed into the worst shit possible. There's an element of that too, I'm sure.
Absolutely. X at this point is literally rigging the deck towards hate speech. There's no other way of describing it. So look, these people, and I know for a fact there are many a profile in the F1 community with thousands of Twitter followers, because their shit has given them an audience, and they're going to keep doubling down on that because it's seen the number go up.
Advantage locked in for years, as they say.
You know,
I should go to the store and buy some more. I should buy some more citrus fruits at the supermarket.
I should get a mohawk and make some YouTube videos about it with my rocket next to me. We could go on for many, many examples about this, but please do not tolerate this sort of bullshit, and we might be better off in the long run, because honestly, this sport is way too tribalistic and too niche for this level of bullshit. Quite frankly, my empathies go to Kimi Räikkönen and the Mercedes social team admins.
Kimi Räikkönen.
No one. Sorry, Kimi Antonelli, I should say. Sorry, but like, no one should have to log into a phone and read the shit that they've got to read. Like, no one should. No one should. I don't. You couldn't give me a check big enough to do shit like that for a living. Fuck no. Awful scenario. And I'm glad Red Bull have since somewhat apologized for it, as well as obviously GP and Helmut on a personal basis. But the damage was done. We've got to do better and nip this shit in the bag. And like I said, Red Bull's apology, in my opinion, was shit. The word sorry wasn't in it, quite frankly. We expressed regret that Kimi got this abuse. Well, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. It's the same people that want to have antagonizing Twitter bios and then take the piss out of people. Look, social teams could probably do a little bit better in this regard as well, because they are very antagonistic themselves at times, because they know poking fun at others gets you clicks. You know, we can all do better. There are blood on all of our hands when it comes to this shit. It is up to us to create a better online community, right? And if we're not going to do anything about it, then you can't act surprised when pylons like this go down afterwards.
Yeah. And you act surprised when they just keep going on and keep going on, regardless of not a good deal. I think Antonelli, clear as day, simple mistake. It's just
was asking a lot of his rear tires as he was holding off Lando, because McLaren botched this race so badly, Lando was going to finish in 5th before that happened.
Yeah. Those 2 points, they will certainly affect what happens at Abu Dhabi. But do they matter that much? I don't think so. Let's talk about Red Bull's driver reshuffle for a minute.
Right.
Isack Hadjar up to the big team next year. Arvid Lindblad promoted from Formula 2 to Racing Bulls. Yuki Tsunoda becomes test and reserve driver for both Red Bull and Racing Bulls. I got multiple layers on this. First and foremost, if you're only going to give Isack Hadjar 1 year to prove himself worthy of a Red Bull seat, I mean, my God, he's done an phenomenal job at that. I thought he was going to be one and done. He's now one and up in the Red Bull seat. And now you have to wonder, he is now, since Daniel Ricciardo left, the 6th different person to be teammate to Max Verstappen. And only one of those people has won a Formula One Grand Prix. Even with Laurent Mekies running the team, even with new power units, has enough of Red Bull changed to make you think that this is not just going to end the same way that it has for the 5 people before him, including the guy we just mentioned?
I'll give them this. This is probably the best time for them to do it. New regulation set coming next year, new cars, everybody's on a blank canvas effectively. If you're going to take the gamble on a driver swap, now's the time to do it. And Hadjar will get the full off season with a lot of testing time. We've got 3 test sessions coming up before the next season starts. It's the best possible time for it, and Hadjar would have the best chance, probably since Checo, to be a genuine success in inverted commas to some degree, right? And look, Hadjar's been excellent in this season, right? He had that horrible opening weekend in Australia, had the very emotional being comforted by Anthony Hamilton moment.
Yeah. And you know why he was emotional about that? Because that cost him a potential chance to get points on his debut. He had an amazing qualifying session.
He was up to speed in F1 immediately. Like when he at Racing Bulls against Yuki Tsunoda in the one race, they were teammates after he was great in China. And since Lawson has come back into the Racing Bulls fold, he's been better than Lawson all season long. 14-7 head-to-head, up in qualifying and race results. 50 points, podium finish in Zandvoort. Legitimately, no real shenanigans involved to get that third place, besides Lando's retirement. They happen. He's been excellent. He's probably been the pick of the bunch of all the rookies, and it was an absolutely loaded rookie class this year. One of the greatest in Formula One history, in my opinion. We've had 7 dudes come up with 11 starts or less. 5 true rookies if you don't count Behrman's starts as well, or Colapinto, however you want to describe it. I think Hadjar's been the pick of. Hadjar's been the pick of the bunch, personally. So he's been exceptional, so exceptional. I'm sitting here like, well, if you're gonna take a punt at it, this is probably the time to do it. This is the best possible chance you can give Hadjar to do it. So I get it. Is my short answer to that. I still worry that the Red Bull infrastructure. I mean, the problem is, it's not so much the infrastructure, it's the fact that you've got a generational talent across the garage.
You got the greatest teammate killer of our time.
You have one of the fastest raw talents this sport has ever seen across the garage, and even being within half a second of him on a regular basis is not bad, quite frankly. And I've said it before, if Red Bull are serious about constructors' titles, they are going to have to spend the money and get a second driver, because guys coming out of an academy after 1 or 2 years are not going to compete with George Russell, Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc, that top 5, top 6 breach of talent that are at the very top of this sport. If Red Bull are not prepared to make that investment, then I think they're going to be lagging behind in that department unless they land another generational talent, which Kimi Antonelli might be at Mercedes, for example. But
or is Arvid Lindblad that guy?
I don't know.
Because he's
the thing
quick.
Is, right,
no question about it.
Because, as someone who's probably watched the most F2 out of everybody here this year, if I was going on a college scale, Arvid Lindblad's a 4-star recruit. He is fast. He was the youngest ever F2 pole sitter, sprint race winner, and feature race winner this year when he was still 17 years old. That is impressive on any scale. I'd like to see more consistency from him, because sometimes there he's just completely off the boil, and he's nowhere. But again, the speed is there. He's a quick talent. And I've always said, if you're going to have one foundational skill to be a junior, it's speed, because you can't teach it. You can always mitigate a quick driver. You can't teach a slow one to go quicker. That's my logic. So, again, me personally, I didn't think there's a big rush to get Lindblad into an F1 car at 18 and just give Tsunoda another year at Racing Bulls. And if you want to move Tsunoda on then fair enough. Right? Lindblad is not what you would call a can't miss talent. I think he can afford to wait a year. I don't see what the hurry is. But again, if you want to chuck him into the deep end, I can kind of understand. That's my logic.
Yeah, Red Bull will do that. Red Bull has generally been, for all the correct things that we say about Red Bull running its drivers through the mill after they get there, Red Bull will still get its guys there.
Because of the flexibility of them having 2 teams, we've always said with Red Bull, they will give you a chance. The leash is extremely short, but you will probably get a chance. That is something that you can't say about most of the other academies, is that you will get a go. It's like, if you can back yourself and you're good enough, they will back you in return. It really is that simple. Hadjar's gone from Formula 2 championship runner-up last year to being a Red Bull factory driver in 2 years. That's remarkable.
Red Bull Ford factory driver. And look, we don't know what the Ford power unit's going to be like. Maybe that takes a little bit of pressure off of Hadjar. We don't know.
Don't know.
Wait and see.
Big wait and see. I feel more confident with Max Verstappen in a Ford power unit than Lance Stroll with a Honda power unit, but that's a whole nother discussion.
I mean,
Well, it's a good thing Lance Stroll isn't leading that team now, isn't it?
And I got to ask you, RJ, how do you feel about Yuki Tsunoda? Because, I mean, 5 seasons, over 100 starts in Formula One. It's the end, at least for now, for Yuki. He stays on as a reserve, which, it's something. You never know. We have seen drivers come back from the reserve pool. It's rare, but it has happened. How do you feel about it? Because I know you're obviously a huge proponent of Japanese motorsport.
Rough timing for all this. When they made the swap for Tsunoda and Lawson, I called it. That was Yuki Tsunoda's best opportunity, not just to be the first of his countrymen to finish on the podium since Kamui Kobayashi, but the first one of them to win. It could have also broken his career, and that's ultimately what happened. I like Yuki Tsunoda. He's been unplayable in the second seat as the year has gone on. It's not all been his fault. He has had some tough circumstances, but the law of averages suggests that he's not been good enough to replace the guy that you bought out the last year of his contract and told him to go sit at home for a year in Sergio Perez. He's not been that good, and that good was already deemed unplayable. It's tough because he just came out of a situation at Red Racing Bulls where he was matching Liam Lawson, surpassing Daniel Ricciardo. By the end of Pim and Gasly's time together, they were a bit closer than you might think. And that's more of an endorsement of how I think Gasly is as a driver than it is that Tsunoda was poor. Of course, he had his meltdowns in his first season. Of course, he said some things that he regret, did some things to regret. I understand that. But man, that's just bad timing. You don't know what comes next. I know a lot of people were just like, Yuki Tsunoda, there's an open seat for you with a Honda power plant in IndyCar if you need it. And I'm just thinking, like, you may want to check to see if that Dale Coyne apartment is going to have leaks in the roof or not before you sign that lease. Okay?
Yeah.
All of that. And no one has been playable in a second Red Bull pretty much since Imola of last year. Mm-hmm. And I still go back to, one more second driver will fix it. I think Hadjar has been fantastic this year. He got robbed of a great result via a failure of an aero part on his car on Sunday, which caused the puncture. Yeah, the kind of the deflector at the top of the wheel collapsed and punctured his left front when he was on track to score, sixth? Best of the rest? Basically, best of the rest. Yeah. And got robbed. Nothing to show for it. I'm just concerned that if Red Bull's technical team produces another car like their last few, like they have been since 2019, he's just going to end up as another notch on Max Verstappen's bedpost. And then they'll plug in Lindblad, and he'll be another notch, and on it will go.
Yeah. By the way, man, they moved on from Liam Lawson as the star of the academy quick because there was no consideration that they were going to put him back in that second seat, man.
Because if Yuki Tsunoda was unplayable in that second seat, Liam Lawson was whatever the situation is between Chris Paul and the Los Angeles Clippers circuit today.
Too soon, man.
But relevant.
I said it on TikTok. There always felt like there was an asterisk with Yuki. It's like, he's good, but. And that's been, I think, the story of his 5 years in Formula One. He's good, but Pierre Gasly was a bit better. He's good, but his teammate was Nick de Vries. He's good against Daniel Ricciardo and Liam Lawson, but he's not comprehensively blowing these dudes away. So it's a bit shrug of the shoulders in terms of how good he actually is. He's good, but he didn't get a full off-season with Red Bull like Lawson did to try and adapt to the car. And look, no matter how you slice it, 33 points in 19 starts for Red Bull is just not going to cut it And
No.
actually, it was John Noble at the race who made a very good point on their podcast this afternoon, where he basically said that crash in Imola probably did him in more than we realised, because it put him behind in the upgrade race. They were limited on resources. It put him on the back foot. It shook his confidence for a good chunk of the season, because even the good side of Yuki, we only really started seeing around Baku kind of time later on, where he looked a bit more respectable, but by that point it was probably already too late. And to be fair to Red Bull, they gave him every chance. They were going to make this call in Mexico, and they stretched it out as long as they could into December before making their final decision, and Yuki just wasn't good enough. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sure who is in that Red Bull scenario. Hadjar might be, but I agree with Cam. More of me, given Red Bull's history, has me thinking that this could be another lamb fed into the food blender to try and make this work, and it doesn't. Again, he's got a blank canvas.
I think the driver's good enough to plug into that second Red Bull seat and be something shadowing Max. One of them drives a Mercedes and one of them drives a Ferrari, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon.
No. And I think if Red Bull want to realistically compete against McLaren for the Constructors' title in the future, you need two elite drivers, because that's what McLaren have. And no other team right now in F1, in my opinion, has that combination. Not yet. Kimi Antonelli's close. He's got flashes. It's not over a full season yet. Ferrari, Hamilton's off the boil. There's no doubt about that, and they have bigger problems to concern themselves with right now, which I think we'll move on to in a minute. But that's the state of play. If McLaren's got a competitive car, they've got 2-point scorers. Even Ferrari and Mercedes have that, but to a lesser degree. Red Bull have not had a consistent second scorer since Sergio Perez's 2023 season. Yes,
and that was statistically the most dominant F1 car of all time.
Right. It's if you need your car to be that good to make your second driver a reliable scorer, that's not a sustainable thing you can hang your hat on for long in this sport. Simple as. Shout out to Carlos Sainz. Huge podium for him. Another P3. Got the benefit of the pit stop strategy and early track position, and was able to hold on to it. But not only a huge P3 for him, it seals P5 in the Constructors' Championship for James Vowles and the Williams team. How about that?
That one hot night in a hotel between Carlos Sainz and James Vowles has paid off swimmingly.
It's sexual, baby.
Well, and just in time, because Alex Albon has completely fucking imploded the last 3 months. And just in the same nick of time, Carlos Sainz, and he hasn't been perfect either. He had a horrible coda, ruined it himself. Mm-hmm. Mexico, car ruined it for him. He has been fantastic down the stretch.
You're looking at 2 podiums, pair of second place, third place finishes in the last 7 Grand Prix. Albon yet to score points in a Grand Prix in that same time span. It's been going so well for Alex. What has flipped for them?
I don't know. It just seems that
it's not Albon's been slow. He's been very error prone.
It's like it's just been, he's made a couple of silly mistakes here and there, and I just don't think he's liking the car as much down the stretch. It's weird. Alex Albon has scored 3 points since Monza. Carlos Sainz has scored 48 in the same time span.
He's outscored his replacement at Ferrari.
To the point now where Carlos is now genuine top 10 in the standings. It's the curse of Williams. In a Williams. It's the curse of Williams, where only one car is allowed to be good at a time. It's if they had both of their drivers firing at the same time, they'd have 200 points this season. Easy.
Yeah, that'd be their most points since 2015.
Yeah, by a country mile best of the rest this year.
And this was a follow-through car.
This was a B-spec. This was a cut-and-shut 2024 car.
and it's P5 in the standings, locked in. It's been the class of the midfield. Like, on a good day, Williams can legitimately run top 5. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Yeah, they're legitimately fast enough to, like, trouble Ferrari on a bad Ferrari weekend, which we'll get to soon.
Next. Now.
Soon. Now.
Get
Carlos
to it now.
Sainz. Carlos Sainz is... Look, he wasn't Charles Leclerc, because very few people are Charles Leclerc.
Yeah.
But man, he's real good at the driving thing. You just got to keep him off of social media, make sure he never says anything.
He was always a solid pair of hands as a driver. Maybe not the elite of the elite, but he was always a good, dependable driver that you could easily have as a number one in a midfield team, at worst. And at best, he's a very good number 2 in a top team. Because that's what he was at Ferrari. He was a very serviceable second hand.
Well, what if Ferrari traded that for?
And what if Red Bull had a solid number 2 driver at their team right now?
Oh,
or
funny.
any time in these last few years.
Ferrari.
Well, Ferrari decided, well, if you get Lewis Hamilton on your books, you do it. If Lewis Hamilton wants to close out his career at Ferrari, you do it. This is just a continuation of what we discussed yesterday. Charles Leclerc was 8th. Lewis Hamilton was 12th in the Grand Prix. Sprint probably wasn't any better. I don't even remember. It was that forgettable of a sprint. I know I'm going to sound very flippant. It's just, y'all know that it ain't good.
Ferrari looked like they brought the F14T back this weekend. The increased tire pressures that they have to run at Qatar to get the tires to live. Excellent job by all involved, by the way. Terrible gravel traps, terrible curbs, and tires that can't handle this track either. How many years we got? Another 7?
Yeah.
I hate it in this house.
Hey, I forgot. It's 13th and 17th in the sprint for Leclerc and Hamilton, respectively, so it was worse.
Yes, it was worse. And that flattered Ferrari in the race, right?
So let me get this straight. Lewis Hamilton becomes the first Ferrari driver to get knocked out in Q1 twice in a row since Giancarlo Fisichella in 2009.
Giancarlo Fisichella, who was brought in because my favorite long-serving Ferrari test driver of the era, Luca Badoer, was plugged in for 2 races and could not finish anywhere above last in a competitive session in those Grand Prix.
If there is any context that you are comparing anything to the 2009 Ferrari Formula One team, other than Kimi Räikkönen at Spa, who was always him at Spa, you've got issues. That car looked like a big bag of dicks around here. I'm going to be real. Charles Leclerc had a big old scary spin in qualifying. Getting 8th in the race probably flattered Charles because he was going to be 9th before Hadjar had the mechanical, which led to the tire failure.
Forgot about that.
Ferrari were deeply lucky to escape this weekend with 2 points on the board. Put this whole fucking team in rice.
Oh God! If we get unload the whole clip now, we're not going to save anything for the season review. But it's been bad.
What is left to empty at Ferrari? The best thing about this car...
bowels?
The best thing about this car... Oh my God. The best thing about this car is the HP stickers. Fuck you, low on cyan.
It was like playing a game of Destruction Derby 2 on the PlayStation 1, seeing Charles Leclerc do a legitimate 720 on track. Yeah, it was...
dog.
Charles Leclerc was so bored in that DRS train, he started doing the championship math off the TVs during the race.
And Hamilton was nowhere. Nowhere. That's the most anonymous he has been in a race weekend I can remember. And he's had nearly 400 starts.
The podium drought is not ending soon. Ferrari is about to get, unless they have a turn of form in Abu Dhabi that does crown Max Verstappen world champion by virtue of getting in the way. They're probably going to go a year without any pole positions, any wins in Grand Prix format, any podiums with the second car. They are locked in. They are now a distant 4th best in the constructors. They're
Yeah.
fourth best in the constructors, and Red Bull is one driver.
They have been beaten by a one-car Max. Effectively. It's not good enough. It is not good. I fear that Fred Vassar will not be long in this job if this keeps up, because that is unacceptable. You had a championship contender last year. You have regressed to P4. The rumours are according to Raptor, he's got till April. If the 26 car is poor out of the box, he will be axed.
Which the rumors
suck.
are is that it will be. Because the rumor is that their engine is mid-pack as opposed to Mercedes and probably Audi and Honda. It's as if it's his fault as well, because the technical team has just laid a fucking egg back in Maranello. This car's a boat.
Yeah. They gambled on this revamped, redone car
So did
to
McLaren.
be the ticket.
McLaren is the second most changed car in the field. They have 800 points on the board.
Yeah,
That's
but McLaren...
that's more than double what Ferrari has.
Yeah, and the problem is that McLaren poached all of Red Bull's good staff, and then they had to build a car. Ferrari doesn't.
Rob Marshall cooks. No, it's
the
like,
king of the
is this
flexi wings?
king of a lot more, if we're being honest. Like, is this the worst Ferrari chassis since the T? I think this is worse than 2020, because we know the engine was a boat anchor in 20.
I was going to say, the only recent contender would be 2020, and that was more...
I think this chassis is worse.
That was more the handshake agreement under the table about their power units.
You could have given that thing 2 million horsepower. It still wasn't winning against Mercedes that year. Like,
right.
This thing is... Because we know... Like, they started this era with a 1-2!
Just ridiculous. They are so shit. More about them in the season review in a couple of weeks' time, most likely.
Hopefully they don't give us reason. Hopefully they don't give us reason to talk about them in Abu Dhabi. Please.
How could it possibly be worse? Dare I say it?
Ye of little faith.
Shout out to Leonardo Fornaroli, your new Formula 2 champion. Won it around a whole weekend to spare.
Fantastic season.
Yeah, back end was... the back end of the season for him was like treating the floor was lava over 6th place. Sensational results and consistency. Snagged a few wins at the end as well. I was deeply concerned that he was going to end up without a home on the grid at all, because he's got family funding, but he was not with a driver academy at all this year. He's been snagged by McLaren at the 11th hour. He's going to be an F1 test and reserve driver for them going forward. Good luck, kid. I hear there's a hypercar seat available coming soon, so, you might end up there for all we know. But, I mean, if you're going to be in a team that has options, McLaren is probably the best landing spot right now, even if it isn't for Formula 1, right?
Right. I mean, I would have said you had the Formula E team, but they just canned that. You have multi-tier sports car racing programs. You have IndyCar, although who knows what happens if they decide to make a change in that lineup, or that change gets forced upon them. It could be any one of a number of people, and I don't think it's anybody in any existing McLaren Young Driver Academy. By the way, they also picked up Richard for sure. For what reason? Don't know.
Hypercar.
Someone's gonna drive a sim rig, right? Like, it's...
That feels more like what it is.
Yeah, I mean...
Everything seems like it's pointing towards McLaren are just going to get experienced guys from inside the paddock, and maybe like one other person from outside. I can't see like Leonardo Fornaroli and Richard Verschoor leading the charge for McLaren United AS in 2027.
No, I mean, it's... McLaren did just have a clear out. They did just dump. I think it was Martini Stench.
Everybody.
Yugo Ukachoku got thrown out of the academy, and Martini Stenchorn, who was decent in Formula 3 last year, he was chucked out. And Luca Badoa's kid, I think it's Brando. His name
Badoer was thrown out.
Yeah.
Another reference to the Badoer family on this podcast.
Of course, we just can't get enough around here.
By the way, did we forget that Alex Dunn was part of this academy? I believe.
Yeah, and we saw him in Qatar this weekend drive with a white car as opposed to an orange one because he'd also been turfed out of the academy for shenanigans between him and Red Bull Racing about a potential offer of a driver academy seat that ultimately got pulled. Great. It's a messy bitch, to say the least. Good luck to the pair of them. I suspect they may need it because McLaren is clearing the decks up in here. Before we go, gentlemen, Abu Dhabi this weekend, as mentioned, Norris in the lead by 12, Piastri back by 16. Norris won here last year, but shows a good weekend to shit the bed in Qatar. Piastri might have finally got his mojo back after a pretty horrid 3 months. Max was nowhere here last year, for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
How are we feeling about this decider?
Took himself out.
Remember, Lando was your pick, Dre. Me and Cam went with Verstappen. Do we want to change our picks?
No. I think Lando will follow Piastri home because that's all he needs to do. I think Piastri wins on Sunday, but I think Norris will follow him home in second to win the title. Verstappen third.
I am going to buckle and change my mind and say I think Lando is not going to make this easy. McLaren's not going to make it easy on him, but he's going to win the world championship in just a few days.
They'll make it difficult because one McLaren won't qualify on the front row.
Probably will be him.
Also, Jason, I know you're listening. Don't change the picks from pre-season. Lock them suckers in. I am not falling for this shit again. You hear me? Now,
yeah. I think Max wins the race on Sunday. I think in the event that Lando is out of championship position, they make the call and Lando wins the title.
We will find out this time next week.
And if they don't, Fornaroli, you are a Formula One driver because Oscar Piastri will be trebucheted.
He will be yeeted all the way back to Australia to eat one of his grilled burgers that they've not given out for 3 months. Good luck to him. Good luck to all of them. The F1 Championship decider, the first 3-way title fight going into the final round since 2010. We'll see how the results play out this weekend in Abu Dhabi. We'll be back to review that this time next week. But speaking of reviews, next time up, our MotoGP season review. Until then, good luck, gentlemen. And remember, don't get eliminated. Sayonara.
Later, y'all.
Can Piastri finish second in this 2-car championship? He better.
I want you to take this papaya and you burn it.